You shouldn't expect an Alien Predator crossover in the next couple of years. Arnold Schwarzenegger is returning to the role of Dutch. The Xenomorph series has crashed and burned in the eyes of fans, and David did not create the Xenomorphs. That's only a small part of what we're going to discuss over the next few minutes. So get comfortable because we're starting right now. And straight away with the hottest news, because Iron Arnie really does seem intent on returning to his iconic role. In a recent interview with Empire, Dan Trachtenberg said as much. The director explained that Dutch's cameo in Killer of Killers was only the beginning. It turns out he and Schwarzenegger discussed the character's future in the franchise, and now new possibilities are opening up for where the story can go. Killer of Killers received enthusiastic reviews from both critics and audiences. Although officially a sequel still hasn't been announced, it's most likely just a matter of time. Trachtenberg's comment suggests that the continuation of the anthology is where viewers will be able to see Dutch again, because he appeared in an extended post-credits scene. Arnie really is coming back, but he'll only be voicing the character. Some people even decided the actor would appear in the next feature film in one role or another after Planet of Death. Of course, returning to the franchise does open up different possibilities, but don't forget Schwarzenegger is pushing 80, so animation seems like the only solution, especially since Dutch is frozen and still young. Despite Trachtenberg's comments, there are no concrete plans yet for what comes immediately after Planet of Death. That's not surprising, because everything will depend on how it's received and what kind of box office it can do, and there are already, if not problems, then at least questions hovering over the movie. In that same fresh interview, Trachtenberg revealed perhaps the key detail about the new Predator. Unfortunately, you shouldn't expect xenomorphs in it, and that was one of the most discussed theories. It suggested that the unkillable creature the film's protagonist is hunting could actually be the iconic alien. Hints were scattered throughout the trailer, which we broke down literally piece by piece. On paper, introducing a xenomorph in the new Predator sounded incredibly enticing. It felt like a chance to tie the franchises together even more and genuinely shock viewers during the screening. All the more so since Weyland-Yutani shows up in the film, and the director of Romulus teased a secret crossover last year. But Trachtenberg gave an unambiguous answer: no xenomorphs in the movie. Obviously, these kinds of theories are part of the fun for movie lovers and fans. Picking apart Easter eggs, hints, predicting where the story goes, that's part of the culture now. Still, after the director's words, we want to believe he's just following in Andrew Garfield's No Way Home footsteps, and something explosive definitely awaits us. By the way, tell us in the comments whether this news bummed you out or not, because we personally have been dreaming of a new crossover since 2007. One way or another, Predator. Planet of Death is about to present a completely new angle on the franchise, because the Yautja is now the main character. A young hunter, Dek, sets off across a hyper-dangerous planet full of exotic threats to earn his place among his race's hunters. He's helped by an android from Weyland-Yutani, the famous corporation known from the Alien franchise. In other words, Planet of Death is already taking some pretty bold steps to avoid the well-worn path. How successful those will be is still a big question. At minimum, the Predator's appearance is the main subject of debate right now, because he's been made a bit too human-like. And the second headache is the awful beast Dek is hunting. All that mystery surrounding it vanished in a moment once the crossover was confirmed canceled, and the trailer already showed the monster in full view. Doubtful, sure, but okay. There's also another interesting version of the plot that's being actively discussed: a local Predator-only crossover inside the franchise. The ending of Killer of Killers delivered a twist that made it clear that if not every entry, then many of them are tied together far more than it first seemed. While the film's main characters flee the Yautja's home planet, a group of predators falls back to a research center and discovers several cryogenically frozen warriors whom they keep for their gladiator arena. That proves Trachtenberg's films share a common story that could ultimately unite all the characters. The director didn't confirm or deny any intention to do that, but this fact opens a fireworks display of possibilities for Planet of Death. If Trachtenberg really plans to bring together heroes from the different Predator films, the most logical way to do it would be to send T and Dek to that very arena by the end of the movie. Since Predators, the franchise's story has shifted and morphed with every new installment. Each director had their own vision, but Trachtenberg is the first to stick around long enough to break that trend. It would be a missed opportunity if Planet of Death ended without laying the groundwork for a future film, for example, by showing Naru from Prey. More likely, though, the director will use the upcoming project to set up a potential alien versus Predator conflict down the line. Using the past, T, Weyland-Yutani, and its ties to the Yautja, that's where all of this seems to be heading. We'll see how it all turns out very soon, because there's only a month left until release, and then we'll tally it all up together. What we can already summarize is the Alien series' attempts to stand on its own, while also fitting into the existing canon. Opinions are divided, but you can't call it a total flop. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's doing fairly well, although it still hasn't been renewed for season 2. And the reason for that is the community. The thing is, even before its premiere, the show boasted that it was slotted into the franchise's official chronology, meaning its events are part of the overall story, and not an offshoot like the 2 Alien vs. Predator movies. Only, try as you might, a lot of its events simply don't fit canon. For example, xenomorphs arriving on Earth had only been shown in the crossovers, but Ridley Scott's prequels neatly pushed those aside and turned them into a kind of what-if anthology, which means that before the series, xenomorphs canonically had never appeared on Earth. Now, that's been changed, because Weyland-Yutani tasked the Magellan to collect samples of alien life forms and deliver them to the planet. Notably, by the end of the first season, the xenomorphs hadn't caused that much damage, considering their potential and the teased symbioses with different living organisms. The series also altered the franchise's timeline, because the first xenomorph visit to Earth happened just 2 years before the events of the original film. In other words, the company knew about their existence and what they were capable of before the Nostromo found LV-426, which means its leadership assumed the ship's crew would be wiped out. That detail doesn't change the first movie, but it adds a sinister stroke to the corporation, which was willing to sacrifice anything to get a live specimen. Interestingly, if the series is renewed, Noah Hawley plans to take a closer look at Weyland-Yutani's decision to alter the Nostromo's trajectory. He said as much in a recent interview. Beyond that, we now know xenomorphs aren't the only hostile aliens in space. What's more, they compete among themselves for dominance. The meeting between a xenomorph and an Oculus proves it. There's nothing surprising about that, really. Logically, the universe has countless planets, so life forms can vary wildly. In that sense, the series is laying the groundwork to introduce the Yautja so they don't fall out of the sky like snow. Another controversial element has to do with David and the emergence of the xenomorphs. After the prequels, that rogue synthetic was considered their creator. However, there was reason to suspect xenomorphs existed long before his experiments. The engineer's ship had frescoes depicting them, and the last engineer apparently recognized his own creation. Although that was never formally confirmed, just as it wasn't definitively proven that David created xenomorphs himself, this bit of confusion seeded by Prometheus and Covenant still remains, and the series didn't resolve it. Of course, Alien, Earth does have its positives. For example, it filled certain knowledge gaps. More detailed information about the xenomorph life cycle, physiology, social aspects, and even behavior. It confirmed that facehuggers impregnate hosts, with a larva resembling a tadpole. Adult specimens protect their young. Xenomorphs have their own language and can even follow commands. In that regard, a lot of detail was revealed, and there are plenty more world-building nuggets to glean. Megacorporations didn't start their race for galactic dominance for nothing. Their main goal was the pursuit of immortality. From Prometheus, we knew Peter Weyland was seeking the key to eternal life, and Alien, Earth, showed what extension methods already existed. Yutani was actively developing cyborgs to prolong human life, and Prodigy was working hard on creating a human-synthetic hybrid. In short, the Alien series demonstrated that it really can expand the franchise's mythology, making tweaks and uncovering new details. The only question is the methods it chooses to do that. In this story, the xenomorphs have been pushed to the background and, essentially, turned into tame pets, which is, to put it mildly, strange, given the word alien is in the title. Be that as it may, the studio is still figuring out what the series' future will be. Clarity will probably come after the new Predator releases, and whether the projects are linked. Either way, we expect a crossover in the next few years, because each new project is, piece by piece, creating the groundwork for it. While we wait, don't forget to write in the comments your final impressions of the show, about the about the xenomorphs, and what you predict for the new Predator. That's all for today. We'll see you in new videos very soon.